hear me clearly?
Yes, yes.
Wonderful. So what I am going to look at this as a little bit from the technical and hard science perspective. What I mean by that, that there are a lot of claims about yoga, starting from ancient literature to modern literature. We are going to examine some of those things in both qualitative and quantitative manner. For example, if we say is that, we get relaxation after yoga, how do we quantify that? How do we measure that? So we do actually real experiments to understand a person's, mental status and comfort before you and after you. Okay. So I'll slightly try to steer towards them, and I'll do some, genesis, how it might have started, what does it entail, and how it actually interfaces with so-called modern science and technology, where we actually have real and hard evidence for every claim yoga makes. And a lot more experiments are in order to actually give a firm scientific footing to the claims made by yoga, yogic processes, tantra, and related developments, right? So what I want to say this, in Hindi, that no vikas ke liye योग और तंत्र. योग एक बहुत ही पुरानी प्रक्रिया है, एक बहुत ही पुराना विज्ञान है. उसको हम, how do we use this, leverage this for the modern times and for our future, which is yet to come? So the way to think about this work is that we start from explorations in an ancient language and build hard proof so that it has a backing of modern rigorous science, that this practice has a lot of fruits to offer us, and we can benefit this. Okay, benefit from it. So let's move a little bit, exploring in the past, and then I'll slightly try to transition it towards modernity. Some of my own students are working on this, and some extremely interesting, experiments I've been thinking about yoga and tantra. So first, yoga. What does yoga mean, right? So yoga comes from the yuj dhatu in Sanskrit, okay? And that's how yoga means. Yoga literally means integrating everything, which makes sense, right? We have a lot of sensory and, activity faculties in our body. And if we work in an integrated fashion with all of them, we are doing yoga. Yoga just means putting it all together. What it means is that we are using the information captured by eyes, we are using the information captured by our tongue, we are using the information captured by our skin and everything else, right? Then Yoga Sutra of Patanjali says is that yoga shit vritti nirodha. Yoga is restraint of the activities of mind. Now, restraint should not be construed here in a negative fashion. All he is trying to say is that we need to do yoga to have our mind disciplined. It should not be an uncontrolled ocean of turbulence. It should be devoted to the betterment of humanity, right? That's why we need to restrain our mental turbulent waves and put it at the service of, where it matters. Now, Bhagavad Gita says, Samatvam Yoga Uchyate, right? So, evenness of mind, calmness of mind, peace of mind, mindfulness of mind is what yoga is. All they're trying to say is that Gita has this concept of samasthiti pragya. What samasthiti pragya means is that you stay the same whether things are going good or things are going bad. You win or you lose. It doesn't matter. You have reached a state where everything is same. What matters is doing the right deed, the karma. Now the last one, as you might know, this is also a motto of IIT Kharagpur, yoga karmasu kaushalam, right? So what that means is that yoga is skillfulness. It's a skill. It's doing something in a stylish and efficient manner, optimal manner, right? So yoga has multiple perspectives. Our reverend, rishis and maharshis and many deep thinkers have thought about these things, and they have defined and redefined the yoga itself. And it has a very happening sort of history. And it has helped humanity wherever it is possible. So we'll take all these multiple perspective and try to make sense what yoga has to offer to us and how we can verify those claims rigorously. Because yoga is not just a shop where we are selling something that if you do yoga, this will happen. Rather, it all has a firm footing. It has a pedestal. It has a scientific and technological method using which we can cross-check that actually how does yoga and yogic practices affect us. Now, I'll not get into detail. These are mostly, what we call Arsa Sahitya, means the literature generated by our rishis. And, I salute their tremendous contribution and their path, finding efforts to build new roads into hitherto unknown, world of ignorance. So Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Raj Yoga, everything is yoga. It's all putting together. It's all integration. But integration is being done with different objective. There can be objective of action, there can be objective of devotion, there can be objective of knowledge, there can be objective of becoming a royalty, a good royalty that is, and ruling with, people-friendly way. Then physical yoga is there, and also there are meditative postures and all that stuff. I'll not get into those details because most of it, Bihar School of Yoga will tell you way better than I can tell you because those guys are the real experts. I'll tell you where my work comes into the picture. This is again some review, meaning eightfold paths of Patanjali, right? Yam, Niyam, Ashan, Pranayam, Pratyahar, Dharana, Dhyan, Samadhi. And one of the things I think is missing here is Swadhyay, which is also very important, which means self-study. So all those things come into the picture. You can see the asans, body postures, and why we need that meditative, relaxing, cultural, etc., etc. Okay, and if you think about it at a deeper level, the postures and the Indian classical dance, the gap actually closes. A lot of things which are done in Indian classical dance, if you think carefully, they resemble almost yogic postures. And I think, that's a deliberate deed in the sense is that once you dance like that, you should feel good about it. Dance should not, disturb you. It should, relax you. It should help you feel easy, right? It should help you meditate. So a lot of those, similes and similarities you will see. And here is a whole sort of list of these things. Again, Bihar School of Yoga is far more competent in these things, and they will do a much better job. Now, let's come into these things. So a lot of claims are there that yoga helps our brain in many ways. Now, just a brief 30-second introduction of brain, how we understand it. Because it's very important that we understand where yoga is hitting us, what yoga is doing for us. Now, just coming on the related note, Tantra. What does Tantra mean, right? Tantra means a system. And our neurons in our Rishi literature, Sanskrit literature, are known as Tantrikaye. So, Tantrikaye together, a network of Tantrikaye or neurons together make a Tantra. So, a system of neurons is what a tantra is, and that's why it is being studied, and that tantra is affected by the process of yoga. That's why yoga and tantra both are sort of mentioned together. So this is the sort of our basic structure of brain, right? And you will find a lot of claims in multiple morphological studies that lots of positive effects are there on our brain because of multiple yogic asanas and yogic processes, right? Like what are those? So you can see effect of blood, morphological effects, right? Effect on neural activation. What does neural activation mean? It means is that a part of your brain which is not active, which you may not be able to use, now you can use it. It's like, finding a bigger CPU, right? Effects on functional connectivity. Now your neurons are connecting in a far more richer way than earlier. What that means is that you can be way more creative without stressing yourself. Okay, effect on neurotransmitters and metabolites and so on and so forth. So again, this is another whole gamut of things which cognitive people, psychologists, and neuroscience will tell you better. I'm just trying to hint at some of these results. so that you try to make a connection that yoga is not just a process which was written by our rishis. It actually modern verification and validation that it does a lot of positive things in a very, very quantifiable and provable manner. And some of those I'm showing you. Next, I'll tell you how do we achieve these things? How do we really understand the impact of yoga and similar processes on our Tantra and Tantrikaye? And, how do we measure it and make sense of it, right? So again, you can see that the cerebral blood flow is greater in the prefrontal cortex after yoga program, which suggests a training effect that enhances the activation of that brain area. Now, this should tell you is that if the blood flow is more in the cerebral part of brain, your brain is going to be healthy. You are going to be less stressful and you can think deeper thoughts. So there is no surprise that our yogis were tremendous contributors in any walk of life. Whether, you look into economics, you look into relationship of men and women, you look into, how to run a country, we knew almost everything. Nagarjuna, who was a Buddhist monk actually, Arya Nagarjuna, actually had foundations of quantum theory, quantum physics. How did they do these things? How did they achieve? Because they could somehow steer their brain towards deeper thoughts, research, new ideas, innovations, and so forth. They were truly pathfinders. Okay? And you can see that for all of them, yoga is a common process. Now, how do we measure it? I'll now jump towards the modernity. So you can see this is what is known as EEG, okay? And the user, who is in the red cap, actually looks at the screen where visual cues are given, and then all the data is collected using a data acquisition software in the laptop, okay? And there is a EEG amplifier because the voltage generated in a couple of millivolts, so it has to be amplified to process properly. And this is what is known as 64, electrode EEG cap. And EEG is very good in time resolution of understanding brain activity. It is very bad in actually space resolution. So there is another device which complements that, and that is FNIRS, which is shown here. Now, what we do is that you use both these devices to understand the effect of yoga and tantra on human mind, on human cognition, on human neuroactivity, right? So I'll give you one example and one experiment I have been thinking about it, that we talk about, Sirsasana, right? Going upside down. Now, why would you think that our rishis were doing that? I kept thinking about it, and I was reading about Alzheimer. One of my own theory is that Alzheimer is happening because enough blood is not irrigating our neurons, especially as we get old. What happens is that due to the nature of gravity, as we walk vertically, it is possible that as we age, only a fewer amount of blood is reaching into our brain, and that is making a lot of our neurons defunct. Now, how do we test this theory, right? So we can design an experiment where we can take EEG of a person before Sirsasana and after Sirsasana and see if Sirsasana makes a difference. That will sort of validate all the ancient to modern claims about Sirsasana. It's not much of a rocket science because we can measure mental activity, mental stress, peace, and all that stuff. And for that, we have two devices which I'm showing you right here. And they plug right into yogic activities and tantra. So what I'm talking about is yoga not just as an ancient and motivational and inspiring science for meditation. I'm talking about yoga as a real cure for modern cognitive problems. And a provable cure. I told you Alzheimer, one of them, it can be epilepsy. It can be stress of modern days, modern times. We all live in cities. We all have stress. Someone's boss is not happy. Someone's wife is not happy. Someone's son is not happy, right? So all these things, at least we can understand that what can be the reason why my brain is so stressed. There are suicidal tendencies. Those can be reflected into EEG and FNIRS, right? We can quantify learning. We can show that actually people who do yoga, they can do math better. And this is not just a fable. All right, so I'll try to, in the interest of time, I'll try to move forward. And I have one of my collaborator who was actually my classmate in Netarhat Vidyalaya. He is currently in Oxford Brookes, and he's a psychologist. So what he does is that he collects all this data for me of EEG for both yogic and tantric processes, cognitive processes, learning processes. And me and my students, we being engineers and computational people, we analyze this data, okay? So here is my student Shanu Sharma. She is going to get her PhD anytime soon. And two basic problems she started with in the exploration of EEG. For example, how yoga and tantra related activities can be helpful to the children who are addicted to games. And that requires a medium to measure the impact of addiction and de-addiction after yoga and tantric activity. And that can only be done using EEG and FNIRS. So you can see that she has a lot of work actually going on in these areas. And she is now almost an EEG expert. A very, very complex signals she measures and detects detects the changes and so on. Second is Anju Mishra. She has similar interest, and she's also looking for, convolutional neural networks for image classification. What is the impact of, again, yoga and tantra on our EEG, FNIRS? And another thing she's interested in, impact of visual media. How do our mental configuration, the configuration of neurons, the tantra, and the yogic processes help us make sense of interpretation, make sense of visual media, and how do we interpret them? And all that can be quantified using hard science, using the devices I showed you, EEG and FNIRS. Now I'll give you a couple of simple case studies, so that you actually see that the claims which are being made about yoga, they all are neither bogus nor fake. What I'm here trying to talk to you is all peer-reviewed science and still stands the test of time. Okay, so one paper, you can look at it yourself, and anybody who wants these things, I can share it with them. Workload regulation by Sudarshan Kriya. And what we do is that here we measure not only EEG, but also we measure heart activity using ECG perspective. So how we can regulate our workload by doing Sudarshan Kriya? How can Sudarshan Kriya can make us, more active and efficient in our daily activity? Okay, how can a pranayam that stimulates physical, mental, emotional, and social being can help us living a better life? And again, this is a proof where hard data has been collected, hard analysis has been done and is rigorous. So I'll not get into the details. I just wanted to hint at some of these studies which are modern. This study is done in 2017, and you can look into all the details, and then you can tell yourself if you should go for Sudarshan Kriya Yoga or not. Second, okay, so EEG signatures change during unilateral yogi nasal breathing. What they have discovered is that if we breathe through our right nasal hole, it leads to stimulation, it leads to excitement, it leads to enthusiasm. Whereas if we breathe through our left nasal hole, it leads to, reduction of stress, it leads to peace, it leads to, de-stressing of our mind. And this is a very, very important, insight to understand. How did they know? And this has been verified using EEG signatures. This is something yogi knew all along. It's for the scientific people who are discovering it in this era, a little too late. Again, Scientific Reports is a very, very reputed journal by Nature Group. I don't need to say much about it, and study is open, it stands. Feel free to read it, criticize it, and make better suggestions to improve it. Yet another milestone for yogic activities where we are still discovering the sort of tip of the iceberg, right? Now, here are Tai Chi Yoga effects on anxiety, healthcare, easy, and math computation. What this study is saying is that your mathematical capabilities will increase if you do yoga. Okay, and a lot of adults participated in this. A rigorous data analysis has been done, and conclusion is that yoga is very good for you. And if you do it, especially if you happen to be scientific or medical professional, which nowadays a lot of people are joining these jobs, they're becoming engineers and doctors, yoga will help you perform your job better. Okay. Now, just to come to my own work with my students, Shanu Sharma, my collaborator, Ashwini Kumar Dubey, and so on. What we are trying to understand is that how can visual media be interpreted properly by a person who is doing yoga and who is not doing yoga? What we are trying to understand is that what is the impact of yogic activity on human attention? And we are trying to understand that using EEG signal, as I showed you earlier. Next paper is neural correlates of affective content. Okay, so again, we are trying to say is that how can yogic activities, meditation can help us do the video tagging better, and how or easy is the sort of medium to accomplish that. So we're looking at interaction of the work, which is the visual tagging, the medium, which is the easy, and to get myself ready for the job, that is yoga and tantra. Okay. So a lot of very, very intriguing scientific discoveries are yet to be made. In all honesty, I know very little about this. I'll be very honest with you. We are just scratching the surface. We are not even scratching the surface properly. Our brain is like a sea, sometimes peace, sometimes turbulent. A lot of waves come and go. And the best part is that we are diverse. We all think differently. We all, understand things differently. And that's the whole excitement of our scientific work, right? Munde mati vinna. So that's the note where I would like to dedicate this work to everybody, who is interested in mental peace and want to sort of get the bliss of doing yogic activities and get the best fruit of Tantra. Thank you. I truly appreciate your time, and thank you.
Thank you so much,